Hello and welcome to the Growing Healthy Families podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Haggerty. On this show, I interview the world's top health experts so that you can know with certainty what it takes to give your family a life of epic health and wellness.
As parents, we don't want to see our kids struggle. I knew that he had the potential, and I knew that something needed to be done.
It was hard. We would get frustrated. We didn't know how to deal with it. I was more emotional about it.
Sure that, we're here. Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the next episode of the Growing Healthy Families podcast. So, moms and dads, today I want to talk about my experience in a salt box. So, for many of you moms and dads, you may have heard of doing halotherapy, going into a salt box, I remember before I was exposed to it, and thankfully in our clinic here we have our next door neighbor is a salt spa, and I remember when we first heard about it, didn't really know a whole lot. There was some buzz in social media, and I was starting to hear some rumors about the salt boxes and some of the benefits. But until you actually get a chance to see it firsthand, it's hard to find out or hard to know. Does this really work? Are there really health benefits? Is it all just, people saying, "Oh, I think I feel better"? And when we had had the salt spa moving in next to us, we make an effort to get to know all of the people that are, in the plaza near where we are in our practice, and to find out about their businesses. And in this case, it was interesting because it was something where all of the people in my staff, myself, my wife, we did not really know much about it, and had never experienced it ourselves. So we were curious. And so, thankfully, the owners of the salt spa next to us, the Holistic Halo Salt Spa here in North Royalton, great people, right? So Lisa and her husband, super generous folks with, giving us the opportunity to experience it, to see what it was like. It was a neat experience the very first time we come in, but it's not. You don't really get a chance to go and experience how significant the value of having something like the salt spa next to you is until you actually have something going on. And, I had an interesting experience because about a year ago, myself and my wife, we went out to St. Louis, Missouri, where we went to chiropractic school because we were going out there to interview potential interns, and we were beginning the process of looking to hire another doctor here in the office. And so we went out there. The trip was going great, and we had a family party to go to out there because I have some relatives that live in the area. And the night of the party, which was a Saturday night, when we got back from it, my eye had gotten really swollen. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, did I get pink eye or whatnot? And I took a look at it when I got home, and what it was is I had a cyst that had developed underneath my eyelid. And it was quite sore, and it was quite tender, and if you've ever had one, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So this this audio might be relevant to something that can help you. So when we got back to Cleveland, I started doing, everything that there was to try and help to calm this thing down. It was warm compresses and, putting, tea tree oil on my eyelid and coconut oil on my eyelid and, putting a little bit of salt on my eyelid and just everything that that I had ever read, anything that I had ever been taught, hoping that it would calm this thing down. And unfortunately, none of it was really working. I'm 2 weeks in and, not really seeing a lot of change, and getting kind of desperate because it was getting pretty irritating because it was also, as some cysts can be, it was weeping. So it was affecting my vision when I was at work and at the office and driving. And so obviously you can understand why that's not good. So, I thought, we had, by that point in time, dozens, if not, well over 100 people that we had sent over to the salt spa for respiratory infections. And, one day I'm standing there and it just hits in my head that, maybe if I were to sit in the salt spa, the same thing will happen since, there's some type of an infection that caused the cyst. If I can get salt into it through the salt spa, then perhaps it will help to calm it down. And so, we had evidence that it worked with respiratory infections, so why not give it a try? So we went in there, and I went and sat for 45 minutes in the salt spa, and just, tried to get the salt into my eye just because it flows in the air. If you've never seen it, these salt spas, they have a pump where it puts salt into the air. It's all dry air, and it circulates in there. And our sessions are about 45 minutes long when we go in. And so you let the salt get into your eye and let it start doing its thing. So, and salt's a natural disinfectant. So it's something I thought, well, hopefully, we'll see some changes with it and it'll calm this down. And what was interesting is I was blown away by how fast I started to feel changes. So it was probably within the first hour that I felt less discomfort with my eye. But the best part about it is by that night, the weeping was gone and my eye was dry. And by the time that I woke up the next day, the size of the cyst on my eye was down by probably more than 50%. I was barely red anymore. And within a matter of about 2 days, it was essentially gone, or as small as a cyst gets on the eyelid. And it was a huge relief because I was getting pretty darn annoyed because it was really affecting my quality of life quite a bit. So when that happened, obviously it stuck in my brain, and we've been able to refer over and recommend lots of people when they do have things like ISIS to go over there and use that, because we'd already been referring people over to the salt box when they get respiratory infections. I will tell you guys, it is, I'm a chiropractor who believes wholeheartedly in, trying to do things naturally. And I always look for, remedies, nutritional or otherwise, that supplement what we do with the adjusting. Because, when we adjust, we know the immune system gets stronger. But when you're symptomatic, sometimes you want something just to get you a little bit more relief while your immune system is doing its thing. So, we refer oftentimes people to go over to the salt spa when they're getting a cold or a sinus infection or a lung infection, because we have seen such amazing results when our patients have gone over to the spa and they do a salt session. And I cannot tell you how many times people come back in and say, it was amazing. It was the thing that helped me to turn the corner. And so, when we see that, obviously, hearing it from person after person with their own personal experiences, it proves it, right? You see it firsthand. You have people who've experienced it who say how much it helped them when they've done all these other things, and it turns the corner. So, kind of fast forward. So, when I talked about that first cyst on my eyelid, that was about a year and a month ago. And so, if you've ever had eye cysts, you also know they can recur. And so, this morning I got up and my eye felt a little weird. I was like, oh no, I hope it's not coming back. And so as the day's gone on, my eye has gotten a little bit swollen and it's a little bit sore. And so I decided, let's go back over there again. I had a few minutes here between doing some paperwork and a patient that was coming in. And so, thankfully, Lisa Bargman, the owner of the spa, she was able to fit me in for a 45-minute session, and went in there, and my eye was pretty irritated going in. And at the time of recording this, I am about 2 hours out from the time I started the session. Then my eye already is already feeling and looking better. I would venture to say, from a feel standpoint, the way that it is right now, I'd say it already feels about 50% better, and it's getting progressively better and better and better as we go. But so, moms and dads, if you've never done anything like halotherapy before, I suggest that if you have a salt box in your area, take a look into it, because Lisa, the lady who opened the place next to us, she did it to help her daughter. Her daughter has asthma, and they had tried a million treatments and the respiratory therapies that she was on, and they were really trying to find ways to give her a better quality of life that did not require her constantly living on an inhaler. And what they found is that the salt therapy had a really massive impact on her quality of life and her respiratory system, and it decreased the amount of lung infections that she was getting. And, if you have a child with asthma, you know how huge that can be. So they were traveling all over the country because they'd heard so much anecdotally about it to see if this would help her, and so that she'd gone to other salt spas and started investigating it. And thankfully, now 3 years ago, she began the process of opening her salt spa next to us. And it's been amazing having it as a resource here for us, because it's helped so many of our patients and their families when they have a time of need like that. So if you've never been to one, find one. It's definitely something where, even if it's a bit of a drive, it's worth the time investment. If you do have a child that has a history of respiratory issues, if you have respiratory issues, or if you're like me and you're dealing with an eye infection, and we have our new associate, Dr. Brandon. he actually got a chance to experience it firsthand. He went over to the salt spa last week because, like everyone, it's that time when the sinuses are getting a little bit irritated. So he was, dealing with some sinus drainage, and he was trying to help himself past it. And he went over to the salt spa, and he came back the next day saying he could not believe how much better his sinuses were doing after just the one salt spa session. And so, it was funny because now, the Lisa was in our office, excuse me, and she and I were talking over in one of the bays, and don't you know, Dr. Brandon is over in one of the bays doing an adjustment, and he's telling the patient about what an amazing experience he had and how much the salt spa helped his sinuses when he was trying to get past this infection. And I think it's cool because obviously he's brand new to our office, only been here for a couple of months, and we talk about it, myself and my wife and Jessica and Jonna and Emily here, our staff. But for him to get a chance to personally experience how it helped him is really cool because as someone who's super interested in doing what we can to try and find natural healing remedies, for him it's a great thing because he got a chance to see it firsthand and experience it, and then now be able to convey that to others when they have a need. And that's a really, really powerful place to be because all of us here, we want to have as big of an arsenal of healing tools to give to our patients as possible. And now, he's experienced it firsthand. He can advocate for it, tell people, hey, this really works. So, if they've got a child that's got a cold, they've got a child that's got a sinus infection or, bronchitis, now they've got a really cool resource that they can use to help that child to get past that respiratory infection significantly faster. And God willing, help them so they don't have to go on antibiotics because moms and dads, if you don't know this, and a lot of us do, but if you don't, antibiotics are ridiculously overused in this country, and oftentimes they are prescribed quite inappropriately. And this is not my opinion. These are the stats from the American Medical Association that you can find online, where they talk about the amount of inappropriate prescribing that the profession does. And the problem is there's no standards that require the doctors who are prescribing to have a justification for the prescription. They can write it at will, and for a viral infection, even though they don't have proof that it's necessary. And if you don't know anything about antibiotics do not work at all on viral infections. They only work on bacterial. So if somebody gives you a prescription for antibiotics and they have not cultured you to see if it's a viral infection, ask, because they can create resistances in you that can predispose you to getting very, very sick later on down the road. And if you need then an antibiotic for a real legitimate reason, it may not work when you need it to, making the risk factor of you having to deal with a more severe infection or not responding in like you should to the antibiotic that much greater. So when you look at things like, a salt box and nutrition and getting adjusted and all of the things that we look at, the more resources that you have, the better. So if you have a salt box near you, go check it out. It can be a godsend for you and for your family this winter if your child gets a cold or gets a cough or isn't feeling well, or if you just want to do the, straight preventative route, which, best practice, right? We always tell everybody in our office, right? I'd rather have an ounce of prevention versus a pound of medicine, because it's always a bad thing when you're having to go and get the meds put in, because it means that you're in such a desperate state that you're not fighting things well. And if you do the prevention stuff, you bolster your immune responses, you bolster your defenses, right? Eat well, exercise, get adjusted, manage your stress levels, get plenty of sleep, all of those things. So you reduce the risk or the potential need for the higher level interventions, like the medicines and the steroids and all that stuff that typically tend to come into a lot of our lives when winter hits and the respiratory infections hit, and gives you a bigger bucket here to help your kids. And oftentimes it will help them much faster than the meds ever can. Excuse me. So if you don't have a salt box near you, definitely go check it out. If you're in the Cleveland area, so the salt spa near us is called Holistic Halo Salt Spa. Check it out. If you're in the area, my goodness, definitely go and give them a shout out and tell them you heard this podcast, and go in and say hi to Lisa, and and give her your feedback and your opinions, because it's a great facility. And they've got some other things there too, like they do massage, and they have an infrared sauna, and they've got a bunch of other great services they offer. So talk to her about all the great things that they have available, and take advantage of it. The more that you can learn, the more that you can help yourself, and the more empowered you're going to feel when you do have a need or an illness in your family, okay? So moms and dads, I hope you all have a great day. This is Dr. Scott with the Growing Healthy Families podcast. If this podcast was something that helped you, gave you a new tool, gave you a new tip, gave you a new trick, then do me a favor in the comment section here. Make sure that you let us know. And if you have a friend or a loved one that would benefit from this, do me a favor. Hit the share button and send that with them. Send that to them so that they can hear all the great information here as well. All right? This is Dr. Scott. God bless you guys. Have a great day and be elite.
Thank you for listening to the Growing Healthy Families podcast, the world's #1 source for health education. Make sure to go to iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a review. Make sure to follow us on social media at the links listed in the show notes, and let us know what area of health you are struggling with so we can get you and your family on the road to epic health.